Welcome conspiracy theorists, welcome CTs, and welcome to another edition of Everything Weird, Nothing Normal. Welcome all believers of everything weird and wonderful. If you do like my videos, please like and subscribe because it's great. It'll get me up there and make me famous. So, look, today I want to talk about George Adamski. The last couple of videos I've been doing is about UFO photos, so please check them out. You've got the Chile copper mine photo, the Heflin photos and the Trent photos. Check them out, they're great. This one goes down a rabbit hole a little bit, so I'm not 100% convinced myself. But look, I'm going to read you what I found, and then you can make your decision for yourself. Okay, right now, George Adamski got famous sharing his UFO photos and these alien encounters. Okay, that's where he got into the news. He claimed to have conversed with Venusians using hand gestures and metal telepathy. Okay, to some, he was a prophet. To others, he was a laughingstock. Even today, more than half a century after his death, George Adamski remains one of the most curious and controversial characters in UFO history. Adamski had multiple claims to UFO fame. Starting in the late 1940s, he took countless photos of what he insisted were flying saucers. But experts, including Alan Hynek, the scientific consultant to the Project Blue Book, dismissed them as crude fakes. Now, don't take Project Blue Book to dismissed everything. You know, it was either fakes or swamp gas. They were famous for it. Then, in 1952, Adamski reported he had met and conversed with a visitor from Venus in the California desert, using a combination of hand gestures and mental telepathy. Well, I have heard that these aliens do converse with mental telepathy, so... Okay, right, so it says his story will only get stranger from there. Adamski chronicles his alleged adventures in several books. The first, Flying Saucers Have Landed, that was in 1953, and that was co-authored with Desmond Leslie. Now that re-encountered his chats with the Venetians, widely read at the time. It later gained a new generation of fans from the trippy 1960s. Adamski's 1955 sequel, Inside the Spaceships, described further meetings not only with the Venetians but also with emissaries from Mars and Saturn. In Adamski's telling, every planet in our solar system was populated with human-like inhabitants, as was the dark side of the moon. In the 1955 book, Adamski claimed that his new friends took him on board one of their scout ships, flew him to an immense mothership hovering over the Earth, gave him a ride around the moon and treated him to colourful travelogue about life on Venus. Look, you know, like I said, it's hard to swallow this one, but hey, you make your decision. It could be true. Along the way, he was also tutored by a spaceman called the Master. The Master, who was said to be nearly 1,000 years old, shared the secrets of the universe with Adamski, only some of which he was allowed to divulge back on Earth. I wonder why that was. Well, you know, why did the Master say he could only divulge certain parts? Maybe we weren't ready. Preposterous as this story seemed, Adamski became an international celebrity and lectured widely. Even Queen Juliana of the Netherlands raised a public stir after inviting him to her palace in 1959 to discuss extraterrestrial doings. Adamski supposedly claimed a secret meeting with the Pope in 1963. So, Adamski soon had followers all over the planet, but not everybody, was on board. Arthur C. Clarke, and I'm going to put him there, Arthur C. Clarke, if you remember him, he did Mysterious World, so I'll put him behind me. Arthur C. Clarke said not only did he denounce Adamski's work, but characterised his believers as all nitwits. So Arthur C. Clarke won't buy it. Now, who was George Adamski? George Adamski was reportedly born in Poland in 1891 and came to the US with his parents and grew up in far northern New York State. He seemed to have little formal education. Not that that would make, you can't judge someone for that. So he seemed to have little formal education, though the press would later refer to him as Professor Adamski, a habit he appears to have encouraged. And I think they called him Professor Adamski because of his UFO books and stuff. Adamski enjoyed his first glimpse of glory in 1934 as the leader of a group calling itself the Royal Order of Tibet. The Los Angeles Times reported they had bought an old estate in California and planned to establish the first Tibetan monastery in America on the site. The Times described Professor George Adamski as being as strange as the cult he sponsors. See, this is why it goes down the rabbit hole a little bit and why I'm not 100% on board with this one. Because he starts cults. So he must be one of those people that people warm to, you know, and trust. But I will carry on reading anyway. Adamski, so somehow Adamski convinced the reporters that he had lived in the ancient monasteries of Tibet as a child. I learned great truths up there on the roof of the world, he was quoted. In 1936, he was back in the papers again, this time as the leader of a group called Universal Progressive Christianity, established in California again. See, look, another cult. So there's two cults he started. Aside from offering a tax plan to end the Great Depression in 1938, the professor stayed out of the news until after World War II. But when the post-war UFO craze took off, Adamski hopped right on. So, eyes on the sky. That's the next paragraph. In October 1946, he said he spotted his first UFO. A large black object similar in shape to a gigantic sausage and apparently motionless. I will stick that there, okay? His next sighting came in August 1947. This time, it wasn't just a single object, but a procession of them. At least 134 bodies count. I'll tell you what, I'm going to put the best picture. So I'm going to put the best picture behind me because that's a good photo. You can make your mind up whether that's fake or not, okay? At least 184, he reckons he saw in one time. Then in late 1949, at what he said was the urging of the US military, he attached a camera to his 6-inch telescope and began scanning the skies at every opportunity. Soon he had what he considered 2 good UFO pictures. That's the one behind me. Since then, winter and summer, day and night, through heat and cold, wind and rain and fog, I spent every moment possible outdoors watching the skies. By the end of 1952, the skies over his California home had become a sort of UFO shooting gallery. Adamski estimated he took another 500 flying saucer photos, from which he had got a dozen good ones. 1952. If you look on the internet, I've got a funny feeling there was a buzz of them in Washington in 1952. It's kind of the same sort of date. He claimed to have provided prints to the Air Force, but he kept the negatives. Very wise. Because every time you give photos to the government, you never get them back. By now, newspapers and magazines were publishing Adamski's photos, and he was given lectures as an authority on UFOs. Because he happened to live near Mount Polymore, home of the famous observatory, he was often misidentified as a professional astronomer. But Carl Sagan, and I'll put his picture there, Carl Sagan, later noted the truth was a little bit more mundane because Adamski operated a tiny restaurant in the vicinity and only had a small little telescope. Now, a close encounter of the Venusian kind. This is where it goes down a rabbit hole again, right? It was in November 1952 in a remote patch of the California desert that Adamski came face to face with his supposed visitor from Venus. The beauty of his form surpassed anything I'd ever seen, Adamski wrote, and the pleasantness of his face freed me of all thought of my personal self. I felt like a child in the presence of one with great wisdom and much love. The Venetian's flesh was soft as a baby's, Adamski reported, after they touched palms, while his hair was sandy in colour and hanging beautiful waves to his shoulders, glistening more beautifully than any woman's I've ever seen. I think he had an alien crush by the sound of it. When the two finally got around to communicating, it became clear that the Venetian had come to deliver a message. Earthlings should stop messing around with atomic bombs. Now, whether you believe this story or not, you got to go with that, ain't you? Stop messing around with atomic weapons. He told Adamski before they destroyed their planet, to punctuate his point and to show that he picked at least one word of English language, he went boom, boom. I think he was trying to say, look, if you keep playing with these things, you're going to blow the planet up. Adamski wasn't the first American to claim he'd met an alien, but he was the first to go public, and he quickly became the most famous contactee. Countless others would follow in the decades to come, telling their own tales of what Project Book's Hynek famously labelled Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Now, I do believe in contactees, and I do believe in abductions. It's a bit scary, and I will cover it in some of my videos, but I do believe it. He's now notoriety turned the humble restaurant where he worked into a tourist attraction. One visitor was Edward J. Ruppert, then head of Project Blue Book, who dropped by incognito in 1953 to find Adamski holding court and hawking copies of his UFO pictures. To look at the man and listen to his story, you had an immediate urge to believe him, Ruppert wrote in his 1956 book, The Report on Unidentified Flying Objects, adding that he had the most honest pair of eyes I have ever seen. Look, I buy that, but he has started two cults, and cult leaders, not that I've ever met one, don't get me wrong, cult leaders tend to be like that, don't they? Why Ruppert clearly didn't believe him, he was impressed all the same. As I left, he was graciously filling people in with more details, and the cash register was merrily ringing up saucer picture sales. Hynek also paid a visit to Adamski's eatery, along with some fellow astronomers. Although he tried to engage Adamski on more scientific matters, Hynek later recalled all he wanted to do was sell his pics. So, you know, I know money's dirty. I mean, you have to earn money. But it kind of dirties but you have to make it. Look, you have to make money. So if you've took photos of UFOs, then you're going to sell them, aren't you? Now, this bloke, is he a conman, a crackpot, or a cosmic messenger? What do you think? Adamski published at least one more book, and it was called The Flying Saucer's Farewell in 1961, and I'll put it there, and continued to lecture widely. At a press conference in March 1965, he predicted that a large fleet of flying saucers would soon descend on Washington, D.C. Unfortunately, Adamski wouldn't be there to greet him. Had they actually arrived, because he died in 1970, he died at the age of 74. Since his death, Adamski's critics have tended to portray him as a harmless crackpot, small-time con artist, or perhaps a bit of both. So what do you think? What do you think? Others, like Hynek, took a somewhat dimmer view, and I get that, accusing Adamski and others like him of discrediting the entire field of UFO research. It's hard enough to get people to believe the genuine stuff, you know. So when you get, I'm not going to call him a charlatan, because I don't know. I make this so you can make your own decisions. But when you do get, especially nowadays with Photoshop and stuff like that, it's hard to believe the genuine stuff. Arthur C. Clarke had made the same point years earlier, saying that Adamski and co-author Leslie did a real disservice by obscuring the truth and scaring away serious researchers from a field that may be of great importance. But Adamski, he did stick to his story to the end, including the upbeat but somehow ominous message he delivered in Flying Saucers Have Landed. So he delivered a message in his book, and I'll read it to you. My most urgent message and plea to every person who reads it is, let us be friendly. Let us recognise and welcome the men from other worlds. They are here among us. That last bit, they are here among us, I genuinely do believe. So, what do you think? What do you think? Are you going to buy it? Do you think it's real? Do you think it's fake? Do you think he was a con man? Or do you think he was genuine? Okay, so, yeah, please leave me some comments and tell me what you think. Yeah, and if you get any more information on it, then please drop me a line. It'd be great. We can have a converse about it. So this is Everything Weird, Nothing Normal. I appreciate you sticking around to the end, and please tune into my next one. Thank you very much.